So let's move on though. Modeling, prime directive. In order for the system to sim independently, and if that sim is to produce behavior among the agents consistent with actual human behavior, then we must have an axiomatic metaframe called a prime directive. If you got to model a system, you have to have a prime directive. So, for example, the simple and easiest and most self-evident prime directive for humanity is don't die. Whatever you do, don't die. Because if you die, then you lose. You lose life, right? Except that's not actually our prime directive because lots of people don't conform to that prime directive. People take incredible risks. Blah, blah, blah. But what people don't do is ever like it when their understanding of reality is revealed to be false or wrong by unexpected reality proving them wrong. So that's the prime directive, is the fundamental driving axiom for each human being is conformity between map and territory. Expectations and assumptions follow from one's map. So examples: infidelity. When I was married to my first wife, even though I had no good reason to trust her, and plenty of reason not to trust her, because I'm an SI user and hadn't had the experience of being cheated on before, I just blithely assumed that she would no way she'd cheat on me. We were married after all. Once she did cheat on me, that was devastating. Even though I didn't even like her, it was still devastating because it was such a ground level foundational expectation or assumption that I had built into my map. And realizing that expectation or assumption was wrong was horrifying. And so, that had massive impact on how I dealt with women thereafter for some stretch of time because, of course, what I had determined in that moment was I had been. This map is a problem. There's something important I was supposed to be watching out for that I was completely oblivious to. My map didn't make a note saying, watch out for this cliff edge here. So I got a serious problem with my fucking map making, is what it seems like from prime directive perspective. Okay, fields: internal metaphysical, internal physical, external metaphysical, external physical. The two external fields are like this one: the internet, talking, sharing ideas. This document here I'll share with the video as well. Yada yada. That's the external metaphysical field. It's a world of meanings, the internet, libraries, things like that. The external physical world is where I'm sitting right now. I'm going to pull this bong right now. No. This has impact on my internal physical field. I feel a little bit different, It's got impact on the external physical field, which is to say I'm doing something. I'm actually pulling a bong rip, and now I have one fewer bong rips worth of weed. But it's not really impacting my internal metaphysical field. In other words, it doesn't mean anything to me. It might mean something to you. And so, in that regard, this physical behavior is being imprinted on this metaphysical time object called this video. The fact that I am smoking this bong rip is a record of it in this video, and you could reference it as a fact. Does it inherently have meaning? It might to you. It doesn't to me. It's just so commonplace for me. I'm always smoking weed, but if you're somebody who has a map that is inaccurate about marijuana, let's say, like you think that it's a big problem or it's not healthy or you can't be, that you're a drug addict, smoke a lot of weed or something. If you've got some sort of map problem like that, then it may be annoying to you to see me demonstrate that your perceptions about it are probably wrong. Anyway, let me finish pulling this bong. So the internal physical, my back hurts a little bit right now. Internal metaphysical is meanings in your head. Mostly words, but also words about emotions, I guess, or emotions maybe. So, what we're talking about simulating human experience, we need to have a simulatable environment. That means objects, fields, vectors. It's the basic information goes certain directions in certain fields, and there are certain kinds of objects in which you can interact with, just like the internet, just like the regular world. So, there are three kinds of people: subjects, objects, and agents. And basically, depending on my position in grammar, I can either be a subject or an object. For example, if somebody comes up to me totally out of the blue and kicks me, I'm an object at that point, from my perspective. Something has happened to me. Somebody did something to me. If I take action, I'm a subject. And if I'm not taking action, but I'm just being, then I'm an agent. In other words, you are the only agent for you. Everybody else is a subject, because you can only experience you. We operate under the assumption that they are agents, but we don't actually know them as such. So those are some kind of objects or people. And you'll see that the people come in three kinds of objects: subjects, objects, and agents. Media and stuff and physical stuff, stuff. Time objects are media objects. This video is a time object. And it is an object that has not a bunch of attributes per se, but rather an identity. You could list some attributes about it in terms of particularly duration, size of file, information about the creator or whatever. But by and large, the identity of this video is the identity that's conferred upon it by the nature of the specific and unique content that comprises it. Okay, so space objects are just stuff like this, like a lighter, or just, stuff. Some things are both, like a sculpture or something would be a piece of media that has presumably meaning to convey, but is also an actual space object. Vectors. So, vectors in this system of fields and objects, what kind of action can you take, basically? Well, you can take action, knowledge, judgment, or interface. These are the four kinds of functions, and they comprise the four vectors. There are 8 functions, and specifically, there are 8 functions total. And I'm not somebody who thinks you should treat it as 4 functions, whatever. There are definitely 8 distinct functions. And the fact that they have S, S, T, T, F, F, N, N is probably a bad idea, but regardless, they are 8 distinct functions. Frames of being. So, as mentioned above, people are 3 kinds of objects. Well, being those 3 kinds of objects means there are 3 different frames of being for people. You either can operate as an agent, in which case you have an illocutionary frame. The stuff, like, let's say you're speaking, okay? Hey, Julie, how you doing? The locutionary frame is I'm asking her a question, how is she doing? And she's going to presumably answer that question, I'm doing fine, or something like that. The illocutionary frame is what my motivation is really for saying it. Maybe I'm trying to get in her pants, maybe I'm suspicious that she stole my eraser and I'm trying to question her. I might have just simply, I just want to seem to be likable and be friendly. That might be my illocutionary frame. But regardless, only agents have illocutionary frames that you can know, although we might presume subjects have illocutionary frames and can reference them. We can only conjecture about them. The subject, in other words, only conveys us the information in the locutionary frame, that which they're trying to convey. It's presumed willful. It is true that we cast judgments on the illocutionary frame as though it existed, so we could say, you don't really mean that, you're just jealous, or something. That would be an illocutionary frame critique. So in that sense, subjects can be discussed as having illocutionary frames, but the thing that makes them different than agents is they're somebody else with their own private thoughts taking action as an agent, so they're a subject. Objects can be the object of action by either a subject or agent. So sometimes we're objects, and that's a different frame of being as well. These are relevant when you get really deep into the mechanics of it. I think that there's a way to parse it out such that each one of these things is ignoring one of these three frames on at least one or more of the fields. And I think if you were to, I haven't figured it out yet, but you can ask me more about it later if you feel